What is up, everybody, and welcome back again to another episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Jordan, and Lindsay lets me run the podcast around here. No, she's busy doing a whole bunch of other stuff. So, I like to jump on here and just post some things. Hopefully, it's useful for you guys. Hopefully, you enjoy hearing these episodes, and hopefully, there's some value in them. This today is episode 22. So, it's actually part two of the PMU World speech from 2024 that we gave. That is how to master mature skin. So, part one dove into a little bit more of our background and our story. It was kind of funny and it was tear jerkers and kind of, giving all the details of how I got into PMU and how Lindsay started the business and stuff like that. But today, in part number two, it is going to be focused a lot more heavy on like permanent makeup and tips and tricks and how to work in mature skin, what we have learned along the way, and what's been extremely valuable for us. So, if all of that sounds good, continue to listen. It's going to be an extremely valuable episode for you as an artist to be able to pick up on some things that are going to take your PMU game to the next level. So, here we go. Who's ready to dive into master mature skin? Who's ready? Yeah?
All right.
Okay. Awesome. So, our goal here for you guys today is to feel confident. Okay. Mature skin can be tricky. We want you to leave today feeling confident that, hey, I know the skill sets, or when a problem arises, I at least know how to handle the problem and move forward to be able to communicate that with my client.
Yeah, and just a friendly disclaimer to you guys, this is not like a one size fits all. We're obviously going to give you lots of tips and tricks and share those things with you, just things that we've learned throughout our career. But our goal, like Jordan said, is just to shorten your learning curve and kind of help you guys avoid some of the mistakes that we've made in the past.
Right. So you may be asking yourself, what exactly is mature skin, or like what classifies someone to be mature? The way we classify mature skin is somebody essentially who is at least 50 years of age and older. What studies show is like women's and men's skin start to change somewhere in their like 20s, 30s, 40s. And somebody who's in their 50s has been exposed to more things. They've been exposed to the sun. Usually around this time, medical conditions start to arise and they have to be on certain medications, things like that. But essentially what we want you to know is how to classify mature skin is that age is not necessarily a skin type, right? So if somebody's in their 60s, it doesn't mean that they have super thin skin and a ton of wrinkles and a ton of things that you have to avoid. Just like on the opposite though, if someone's in their 40s, it doesn't mean that they have average skin and you can just treat them like totally normal, okay? You have to treat each client on a case-by-case basis on what you see in the skin.
Yeah, and diving into some of the characteristics of mature skin, you guys can see the things that we've listed on the screen. There's obviously more, but these are the basic characteristics that we see when we're working on this demographic. And like Jordan said, age is not a skin type, so it's really important to make sure you're evaluating the skin ahead of time so that you know exactly what you need to do when you start to tattoo them. We're going to talk about each of these characteristics so that you guys kind of know how to identify each of the things.
Yeah, so first up, wrinkles. So if you're with me, say wrinkles. Oh, you guys, we're competing with the world stage over there. If you're with me, say wrinkles. That's so much better. Okay, thank you. Okay, so with wrinkles, they're probably the most common, right? They're also the most easy to identify. You can look at somebody and say, oh, hey, there's going to be wrinkles in the permanent makeup area that I'm going to be servicing just by looking at someone, okay? With wrinkles, for brows, they're going to be most common pretty much like in the 11s or the front of the brow. They can be kind of throughout, so you have to be careful there. For eyeliner, they're going to be mainly on the eyelids, obviously, and then in the crow's feet. And then for lips, sometimes they can be through the vermilion border. They can also be on the lips. Okay, so you have to be careful there. But essentially, the biggest thing I want you to know with wrinkles is you have to be very careful. Okay, so you have to, everybody knows like what a wrinkle is, but essentially like the shadow that is there in the wrinkle, as soon as you stretch to work on the permanent makeup, it disappears. And it's not super easy to be able to tell where that wrinkle is. So you have to be very careful, even if you don't oversaturate it due to the shadow, it may look like, oh, that area is actually darker than the rest of the lip. So you have to be very careful to blend. So my tip for you when working in wrinkles is for eyeliner, I like to, when I do my pre-draw, I know like, hey, I cannot go above a certain height because of the wrinkles in the skin texture, okay? So I will mark literally with that and I know, okay, I cannot go any thicker. But for lips, what I like to do is I actually will mark outside where the vermilion border is essentially. So that way when I'm outlining specifically, I know, hey, when I get to that point, even if my stretch is there, I have my mark to know, hey, do not oversaturate that area, or it's actually going to do the reverse. Instead of it looking good on someone, it's actually going to saturate and look oversaturated. And on lips, when you oversaturate the outline on a mature client, there's no going back. Like, it's super hard to blend that line back out, and then they're gonna leave with tattooed, saturated lips, which is not a good look.
Texture. Who has seen texture on a mature skin client? Have you guys seen texture? Yeah. It's really difficult to work in textured skin because you're working on an uneven surface. So not only is it hard to evenly distribute pigment on textured skin, it's hard to get an evenly healed result as well. And so what you guys can see, that picture in the very center there is an eyebrow that's immediately after. The other two pictures are before pictures. So I actually went to go put a before picture of this lady in the center there. And besides the wrinkle that's in the middle of the brow, you couldn't really see the texture on the skin. So sometimes when you guys are working on textured skin, you don't see it until you start tattooing it. And then once you start tattooing it, you're like, oh wow, yeah, this is super textured. So you guys can see the front of this brow, there's a highlight. So there's a big, it's more raised. And then you have your wrinkle, and then towards the back, there's a little, like a divot in the back of the brow. That's essentially a formation of a wrinkle is getting ready to probably start there, okay? So there's texture from the front all the way to the back. So it's really difficult to work on textured skin, like I said, because the skin is just super uneven. So a few tips when you're working on textured skin: don't overstretch. Because if you're overstretching, your needle is going into the skin every single time, and you can cause migration, okay? You guys are gonna hear us say migration and oversaturation a lot during this presentation because those two things are very common on mature skin clients. So overstretching can lead to oversaturation, and oversaturation can lead to migration. So one thing that I like to do is I like to do use pointillism, that technique. Now that will take you longer to do because it's pointillism. It's just dots, okay? But it works really well when you're trying to work in between the texture of the skin. The other thing that I like to do is when we're taught to do brows, we're working very horizontally with the brow, right? We're stretching and then we're working this way. What I like to do is I like to work perpendicular. So you guys can work this way to kind of work in between, again, the grooves in the textured skin.
Next up, thin skin or vascularity, okay? Probably number 2 on the most common as far as characteristics in mature skin, okay? With thin skin though, it can be kind of difficult to identify sometimes, am I right? So with brows, I would say it's not super typical to be able to see veins in the brows, but you can see this lovely client here. You can clearly see her veins down in her temple. That's probably the most common area if you're gonna see veins in the brow area, all right? With lips, lips are a thin tissue in general, right? Like just anyone's lips, it's a thin tissue. Specifically with your mature clients though, okay? The biggest thing with lips in mature clients, essentially they lose that elasticity. So when you go to stretch, you can almost stretch again, but then when you release your stretch, it almost takes a minute for the lips to kind of like bounce back to normal. So you have to be very careful when you're essentially like outlining them. A way to identify the thin skin in the lips is essentially, for lack of a better word, it's kind of like a crepey look, if you know what I'm talking about, like almost like cratery kind of. So that's an easy way to be able to identify thin skin in lips. For eyes, they're almost gonna be translucent. Okay, for your eyeliner clients, they're gonna be able to see veins. You're gonna be able to see the veins even before you start stretching on their eyelid. And then once you stretch, you're really gonna be able to notice that like, oh wow, they're like popping out at me. So tip for working in eyeliner on thin skin, personally, we'll dive into needles a little bit later, but I like a larger configuration. And then I also, you wanna make sure that you're working parallel with the lashes. Okay, specifically on your mature clients, if your needle starts to go upward towards that vein, that's where like migration can happen super fast and super quick. Okay, so you have to be extremely, extremely careful with your mature clients and eyeliner.
Sun-damaged skin. It's my favorite to work on. Just kidding. It's actually the hardest type of skin to work on, in my opinion. Sun-damaged skin, you start to see pigmentation changes, right? There's sunspots, age spots, liver spots, freckles. There's loss of skin tone. So there's decreased elasticity. And migration can occur really, really easily as well as bruising too. So sun damaged skin is typically pretty tan, right? And you're thinking, duh, Lindsay, of course, sun damaged skin is tan. However, I will tell you guys, I've worked on a lot of mature skin clients that don't look tan, but as I'm starting to tattoo in their skin, they're showing characteristics of having sun damaged skin. Again, it's thin, it bruises easily, it's super delicate. I kind of joke with Jordan and I tell them, when I look at sun damaged skin, I swear it bruises because it's just it's so delicate and it's so brittle. So when you guys are working on your mature skin clients that have sun damage and they're showing those characteristics, my biggest tip for you guys is to make sure that you are working really lightly and that you're also working really slowly as well. We lost our...
That's good. Okay, so next, did you need to keep going? Sorry.
We just lost our screen there for a second.
You good there?
Yeah. So the other thing that I recommend for you guys is when you're working on sun damaged skin, use inorganic pigments because they're more forgiving, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But if you're going to use an organic pigment on sun damaged skin, just dilute it at least by half, and that will help give you a softer result too.
Next up, moles and scars. So who here has worked on somebody with moles or scars, right? Pretty common, okay? With moles and scars, there's a couple things you want to know for each, all right? So you can see by the screen here, this is actually healed eyeliner for my client. She has like a mole or a raised area right there, literally right in the middle of the lash line, literally. When she first came in, I essentially, I had to identify it and tell her, hey, you have like a mole in the raised area. I'm not gonna be able to go over that. Okay, as soon as I let her know that, sometimes clients will literally like, oh, I didn't even know that was there. Like, it'll be like an aha for them. Okay, so you as the professional have to notify them first. From there, then, I gave her an option. I said, you have one of two options. We can either do what I essentially ended up doing with the eyeliners, essentially work all the way up to it and then stop and then continue on the other side. Because if you put pigment into a mole, you don't know where the blood vessels are underneath. So one, your risk of migration is super, super high. But then two, it's raised and it's textured. So even if I get color perfectly in there, it's still not gonna match the rest of the permanent makeup and it's gonna throw off essentially the rest of the shape, all right? So for this client, she chose to just continue on one side, or go up to one side, continue on the other, and then she'll just take like an eyeliner pen or mascara and fill it in. Option number two, then for moles, would be essentially they can go seek out medical professional and then they can get that removed. And then once they're cleared by the medical professional, then you can come back in and actually work over the permanent makeup area. Okay, but they need to know their options. Don't just assume that, hey, there's a mole here and I'm just going to work around it or I'm going to work through it, whatever. Like that needs to be communicated to them ahead of time. For scars, kind of somewhat similar boat. So there's two different approaches to scars and two different results that can happen. When you have a scar in the permanent makeup area, the tissue essentially that's there has been damaged, okay? One thing that can happen is the damage could be so severe that it's very firm and very hard and dense underneath. So when you go to tattoo in that area, it's gonna be very hard to break that up. It's not gonna be very easy and it's not gonna accept pigment very easy. Okay, that's one thing that can happen. The second thing that can happen is because it's damaged, it's very fragile, and the second you touch that, boom, there's pigment there, okay? And you don't know how your client's gonna respond either way. So what we recommend for approaching like scars, specifically on mature clients, is just let the pigment build slow. Turn your machine speed way down, start very slow and work the pigment and let it slowly kind of oxidize in the skin, because that way, if it's hard, you can just continue to work over it. But if it takes it super easy, then it's gonna allow it to heal beautiful. The other last thing that we found out about scars is after one session, if the tissue is extremely dense there, it may not heal the best after one session, but we've seen that when they come back then, that tissue is broken up and after the healed for the second session is so much better.
Yeah, and when working on this demographic, you guys will have a lot of clients that come in that have no hair, right? Because our more mature skin clients are losing some of their eyebrow hair. The other thing that you're gonna see is previous permanent makeup. And this generation was the generation that had a lot of deep tattooing done in their permanent makeup area. So their eyeliner, their lips, their brows. And so there's tons of migration that has occurred. And we see it all the time with our clients. And with this particular client where she has no eyebrow hair, when you guys are working on clients that don't have any eyebrow hair, you have to make sure that you're being really precise. We always have to make sure we're being precise. But when you are working with no hair to blend any of your mistakes, your mistakes are really like amplified, they're magnified, and you're gonna really be able to see them a lot more. And so make sure that you guys are drawing your pencil strokes wherever you need them to be. Make sure you're drawing your eyeliner, how thick you want it, and then same for the lips, your outline is exactly where you want it to be as well. And when you are working on clients that have previous permanent makeup, the 3 things that we look for just like right off the bat as a quick screening, we look at where the location of the permanent makeup is. So is it in an okay location, or is it really where it should not be? We look at the migration. Like you guys can see, that's not our work, but that lady came in to us, and Jordan was actually able to work with her. He just kind of made her eyeliner a little bit thicker, but still kept it really soft, and it healed so beautiful. But then we also look at, is it saturated? Is it too saturated? Because obviously, as you guys know, if you're working on something that's too saturated, the end results are just not very natural looking.
Okay, so you may be asking yourself, like, okay, how often would I actually work on someone who's mature? Like, how often do we work on someone who's mature? Like we've said before, we have about 14 years of PMU experience between the 2 of us. And in that time, about 55% of our total clientele that comes through the door is age 50 and older, okay? So that's over half of the people that we literally work on are 50 and older. With that 50 and older crowd, they spend on average 21% more than somebody who's under 50 years old, okay? That's huge. That's a lot of money at the end of the day that they are spending more with us. And then once they come into the studio, they're actually 2 times more likely to upsell to a product, another service provider, okay? That's thousands and thousands of dollars that you are missing out on if you are not able to deliver a good result for someone who's over 50 years old, okay? And then I honestly encourage you guys, run your numbers, go into your software, run your numbers, and see, am I servicing someone who's 50 and older? Because if you are, maybe it's a demographic that you actually need to double down on and say, you know what, like I'm gonna really hit hard in getting mature clients into my studio because they spend so much more money with you, and they will be repeat clients year over year over year.
Yeah. So why do you guys need this demographic? Jordan just pretty much said all of the things that you guys needed to hear as far as why you need this age group to work on. But one thing that we have found is that they're usually just not very picky, which is fantastic, right? We all love clients that are like, Lindsay, just do whatever you want to do. I trust you. My face is in your hands. We all love those clients, right? So yes, we do. Amen. So, like we've been kind of saying, like we became very experienced very quickly with working on mature skin because both of our locations have a high range of clients that are 50 and older. And we have to be a little bit honest with you guys. We are a little bit jealous of some of the pictures that we see on Instagram. There's beautiful, soft skin. There's like no wrinkles and it's like flawless. We just don't get that in our locations at all. So we pretty much had to pivot really quickly and kind of find our niche or your niche, whatever you guys like to say. But like I said, this demographic is typically not very particular. We have clients who come to us all the time and they're like, Jordan, anything that you can give me is better than what I have now. Or Lindsay, whatever you can do for me, I know I'm going to look better and younger. And so they're just grateful for any type of better result than they currently have. And they do typically understand that I'm not going to maybe be able to get this done in 2 sessions. We might need to do a 3rd session because we're being very conservative on the first session with our mature skin clients. And so once we show them and tell them those expectations, they understand a lot more, especially when we're upfront with them right away.
Yeah, so we're gonna change gears here a little bit, okay? Understanding this clientele or understanding this demographic, right? With your mature clients, they will want relationship. You cannot be transactional. You can't treat them transactional, okay? Kind of goes for any client, but specifically your more mature clients. They did not grow up with technology. So they most likely they don't have Instagram. They might have Facebook, okay? They're not gonna be the most tech savvy to be able to send over photos. And then they're gonna want phone calls over text messages. They're gonna wanna get on the phone with you. They're gonna tell you all about their grandson who played baseball, and they want that stuff. They crave that. So as a service provider, be willing to listen, okay?
Yeah, we get so many fun stories. I'm sure you guys get that as well. You want to change the slide for me?
You're good. Posting social media?
Oh yeah, so posting on social media. What I learned early on in my career was I had a lady who came into me, she was probably in her 70s, and she said, Lindsay, can I even get this service done And I said to her, I'm like, what do you mean? Like, yeah, you're here today, you've booked an appointment. What do you mean, can you get it done? And she says, you never post pictures on Instagram of people who look like me. And I was like, yeah, that was my reaction. I was like, oh man. And so I didn't post those pictures because, as you guys know, they don't get the most likes. They don't get the most engagement. They don't get the most comments. Okay. So I learned early on that although they don't get the most engagement, I still need to post those pictures because even as unperfect as they might be immediately after, those clients still want to see that you know how to work on someone who looks like them. When they look at someone who's 20 or 30, they can't relate to them. They don't even look the same. The skin is not the same. So they like to see the older people that you can work on because then they can look at that person and say, oh, that looks like me. She can work on someone that's my age.
Yeah, and going off of that, because there's so many essentially like beautifully pictured like lips and brows and eyes that are out there, you as a service provider then have to be able to bridge the gap between what they're expecting and what you can actually deliver on. Okay, so sometimes that means having some hard conversations with them, trying to tell them, hey, like we can't go that thick, or hey, we can't go that dark, those kinds of things. But then also sometimes that means you have to turn them away if they're not willing to work with what you're wanting to do. And I know if you're a newer artist out there and you haven't been doing it very long, you're thinking, I worked so hard to get this person in my chair and now you're wanting me to just turn them away. Like, but if it's not going to be what's best for them long term, you always have to educate their expectation versus your reality of what you can do.
Yeah, and one thing that we've noticed too is we have to be more sensitive with this clientele. So I'm not saying that anyone, everyone who's over 50, you have to be really sensitive and gentle with them. We just noticed that we have to kind of work a little harder to coddle them and, to explain things to them, and that's totally okay. So just make sure that you guys are always being upfront and honest with them. Make sure that you're being patient because most of the women that sit in our chairs that are over 50 have literally never had a single tattoo in their lives. So the first thing that they've decided to get tattooed on them is something on their face. So they're going to be super nervous. So we have to be kind, super gentle, and just a little bit more sensitive with them.
Yeah, so continuing, kind of going back to what Lindsay was saying about social media. So when you have your pre-consultation with them, you want to relate to them. You want to be able to show them pictures that you've done on other mature clients. Don't show them a picture of somebody who's in their 20s and 30s and say, hey, look at these brows. Aren't these great? Like, that's what's setting up the unrealistic expectation for them, and they're going to be upset when they don't have that achieved result. And a lot of times that just could be because of the skin, not necessarily because of the surface. All right? But with the photos, essentially, you need to be able to see themselves in it. They're going to be able to relate to you so much more. And then it's going to totally showcase your expertise when you can say, hey, look at these brows or look at these lips of somebody who's your age. I can do that for you.
Yeah, and I think when you're explaining, like when they're asking questions or when they're wanting something and you're saying, I can't do that for you because of X, Y, and Z. It's really important to explain in depth X, Y, and Z, because if you're just saying, no, you cannot have that microbladed eyebrow because you're too old, like, I can't say that to them. A, that's really unprofessional. It's a little disrespectful. And we have to just be able to, like I said, educate them and help them know and understand that there are better long-term healed options for them other than, maybe what they're looking for.
Yeah, and use convincing phrases, okay? So I love to tell my clients, like, hey, this eyeliner is going to open and lift your eye. These lips, once you have a defined border, are going to make your smile naturally lifted. These brows are going to make you look 10 years younger, okay? And honestly, what woman does not love a good compliment?
It's true. So permanent makeup service recommendations, again, this is just a basic recommendation. This is just a recommendation based on what I have found to heal really good over time and long term. For my clients, anybody who is over 50 years old can only get a nano brow or a powder brow. They cannot get microblading, ever, 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 ever. And I only say that again because I've been able to see my clients come back year after year or every couple of years, and I've just seen how it ages in the skin. So when I have a client who's over 50 and they come in, they say, Lindsay, I want my eyebrows microbladed, okay? So I first evaluate the skin and see if I can even do a nano brow on them because they don't know the difference between a microbladed brow and a nano brow. So we have to explain that to them. But basically what they're wanting is they're just wanting a really natural look. And so I only recommend a nano brow or a powder brow on your clients over 50. Now, once you're getting into the 70s and 80s, their skin is like even thinner than 50s and 60-year-olds. So when your client's coming in, if they're like 70s, 80s, and they're like, I want microblading, well, no, they can't have microblading. And honestly, nano brow is not always a great option for them either. And I only say that because I've seen how it ages in the skin.
Yeah, for eyeliner, you're gonna wanna stick to Lash Liner Classic. Okay, what I have found personally, like when you go too bold, too thick, or you shade on wrinkly eyelids, it just does not heal well long term. Okay, so that's again a conversation you have to have with your client up front. Hey, because of XYZ, because you have wrinkles, because you have maybe more of a hooded eye, we're not gonna go as thick. This is what's gonna be best for you long term. Okay, now, are there instances, yes, where I've maybe extended a wing just a little bit more because the client's eye allowed for it, or maybe did a little bit of shading on a smooth eyelid who's somebody who's over 50? Yes, totally. There's exceptions to the rule, but in general, this is something you're gonna wanna stick to. For lip tint, I pretty much stick with natural colors, okay? And I know that like some people disagree with that. That's totally okay. What I have found works best for me is natural colors. A lot of my clients that come in do not have lip filler. Like it just doesn't happen. I think maybe in my like 6 years, I think I've worked on maybe a handful of lip fill, like that have filler in them, like very, very little. So sticking to more of the natural side and not the vibrant colors helps heal long term to what's just gonna be natural and fit them, okay? Also with the lips though, again, like sticking what I found with, if you put a super contrast of high vibrancy between a mature client that has maybe more of like a pale skin, it's going to like throw more dark and more shadow where it could look oversaturated or it could look more tattooed as opposed to the softer natural colors.
Yeah, and so when you're tattooing on mature skin, this is something that we tell actually every single one of our clients. We tell them whether they're younger or they're more mature, we always tell them you can always add,
but you can't take away.
But you can't take away. So that's really important when you're working on mature skin because again, the first session, I always tell people we're laying the foundation, we're laying the groundwork. We want to see how this heals because their skin is thin, it's sensitive, it can bleed. Again, migration can occur, saturation is just very possible. And so I always want to do a little bit and then when they come back for their touch-up, then we can add a little bit more.
Yeah, and like Lindsay was saying, just less is more. So sometimes just highlighting or emphasizing, enhancing them something of what they already have is gonna be better than trying to give them something that's super bold or super crazy, okay? Then be ready to make adjustments, okay? So go into the service, have an idea, have a plan. This is the machine I'm gonna use, this is the needle, the hand speed, all of those things. But then be ready for the skin to be able to tell you, hey, this isn't working, there's bleeding, there's bruising, like we need to switch something. Be ready to make those adjustments because guys, you can't treat someone who's in their 20s and 30s the exact same way who's in their 60s. If you approach the service the same way with the same needle, same hand speed, same machine, it's not going to go well, I promise.
So why your canvas matters, this is something that we really want to drill home to you guys because well, we live in an age where when we're looking on Instagram, the pictures are all perfect, right? They're flawless. Most of them are edited, okay? And so we feel like all of our work has to live up to these really high expectations. And when you're working on mature skin, it's not gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. Sometimes your results are gonna be absolutely flawless. After like the pictures that are on the screen, there was like no hiccups during any of these services, no bruising, bleeding, or anything like that.
Yeah, like sometimes like Lindsay said, like with this eyeliner, like literally zero redness. The lady's like 70 years old, totally fine. Lips great, soft brows, like absolutely awesome. And then other times it doesn't go so well.
Yeah, so not always picture perfect. This is, again, what we want to drill home to you guys. We're just being vulnerable with you, showing some of our work that is not picture perfect. You guys can see on the brows there's a little bit of migration in there. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. In the middle picture, there's bruising on the eyeliner. And then these lips, she's 83 years old. This woman absolutely loves Jordan. She touches him all the time. And I will tell you, I love when women make Jordan blush. My mature clients, it's so funny.
Yeah,
but
specify there.
Sorry, mature clients. They love Jordan. They like to call him a tall drink of water, so it's pretty funny. But anyways, were these not the hardest lips you've ever worked on?
You can see in the picture, literally, like I had to have her open her mouth just to be able to get the picture because her lips like literally curl inside of her mouth. Like very difficult to work on.
Yeah, so again, when you're working on this clientele, the skin is what the skin is. You guys can't change it. So again, post the pictures even if they aren't beautiful because your healed results are what matter. Not necessarily what they look like immediately after the service.
Yeah, and we actually don't like the word perfect, okay? So we actually have taken the P word out of we just call it touch-ups now. We don't call it perfecting sessions because again, we feel like that's setting up an unrealistic expectation, especially for our mature clients that are thinking like, oh, my lips or my eyes are gonna be perfect after this session. They might not be.
Yeah, and just as we set realistic expectations for our clients, guys, we have to set realistic expectations for ourselves too. So when you're working on mature skin, give yourself a little bit of grace, because again, you can't change what the skin is and what it does. You just have to change what you're doing to make sure that the service is gonna work and heal well.
Okay, are you guys still with us?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because we're gonna deep dive here and get a little bit more technical, okay? So when we're talking needles, if you're thinking here and you're like, man, like needles really just like are confusing, they kind of make my head explode, there's so many different configurations. We're gonna break it down so it's super easy, super simple, some of our favorites and some of the things that we work with, so that way you guys can have that success too, okay? When I'm dealing with eyeliner, I love using a 5-round shader that's a medium taper with a 0.35 millimeter diameter. The reason why I like that is because it's gonna give me maximum saturation and maximum pigment deposit, but very, very little trauma and very, very low risk of migration, okay? Now, every now and then I will switch to like a 3-round shader if I need a little bit more like precision, but rarely do I ever use a 1-round liner for eyeliner on my mature clients. Reason being, the needle it literally has 0 resistance. So the second it goes into the skin, there's extreme, like it can go any which way, any direction. So your chance for migration literally goes through the roof. Now, yes, if I'm doing like shading or something like that, I may use a 1-round liner, but honestly, I even shade with a 3-round shader sometimes, all right? For my lips, they're kind of the one exception to the 1-round liner. I will use a 1-round liner for my lips, but with it, I like a 0.30 millimeter diameter. Long taper, medium taper, just kind of depends on what I see in the skin. But with that, you have to be careful, like I said before, to not oversaturate your outline, because if you go too deep, too fast, you can't recover from that. Okay, so you want a super soft, light outline. And then once I finish my outline, sometimes shading just depends. I'll usually just see what the skin's doing at that point. If I do my outline and I have a lot of bleeding, bruising, swelling, all of that stuff, then I'll probably switch to a 3-round liner or a 3-round shader. But if everything's going fine, I'll just continue with my 1-round liner.
Yeah, and for brows, Jordan is a little bit more particular with the machines and the needles and things that he uses, which is great because he's servicing different areas. But for me, I'm pretty simple. I have very few needles that I have found to work really well consistently for mature skin. But like Jordan, I never, ever use a 1-round liner. In my opinion, they are not good for mature skin. Again, it's puncturing the skin every single time. There's 0 resistance when you're using a 1-round liner. And if your needle length is not just right and your needle length is too long, you're dragging on the skin and you're kind of just chopping the skin up a little bit. And then you're, again, the fun words we keep saying all the time. You have migration, you're oversaturating, bleeding, bruising, all of those things. So I love a 3-round shader. Medium taper though. Medium taper is what I have found to work the best for me. Now, if you're working in the skin and you're starting to see some bruising and bleeding and you're using a 3-round shader, stop and evaluate. So check your hand speed, check your machine speed, make sure you're entering into the skin really gently. Think an airplane, right? It lands into the skin very easily and smooth, and then it takes off smooth too. So make sure you're not clunking the skin, you're not hitting the skin really hard and dragging, because then you'll get hot spots, okay? So if all those things are good and you're not doing any of those things, switch to a 3-round liner, because sometimes you might look at the skin and they might have characteristics of thin skin, and then you start working in them and you're like, that's not as thin as I thought it was going to be. I actually need something a little bit more sharp, because our round liners are a lot more sharp than our round shaders, right? And the round shaders, the reason why I like them is the needles are spaced further apart, so it allows for a softer shade, okay? We can't dive too deep. Sorry, I'm losing some of my notes here at the bottom of the screen. We can't dive too deep into the needle configurations, but we have a free needle configuration guide for you by Service and by Fitzpatrick at the end of the presentation today, so you guys can snag that once we're done.
Okay, so let's talk machines. Who's light-handed when they work out there? Who's like, oh man, I don't want to like go too deep. Yeah, me too, surprisingly, even though I'm massive, like super light-handed. Where are my heavy-handers? Who's heavy-handed when they tattoo? Yeah. That's Lindsay.
Yep, that's me.
Okay, but yeah, so for machines, me personally, since I'm light-handed, I actually like to let the machine do the work. So I will switch back and forth between either a 2.5 millimeter stroke machine or a 3.5 millimeter stroke machine, depending on like what service I'm doing, depending on if I see thin skin, things like that. Okay, Lindsay, on the other hand though, literally only works with her 3.5 millimeter machine. All she does is just adjust her hand pressure. She likes that, I like mine. There's no right or wrong reason when it comes to machine, you just have to be able to make the adjustment. But when you're talking essentially as far as like machine speed, okay, I'm sure you guys have all heard this, but they have to go hand in hand. So your machine speed and your hand speed have to match perfectly, especially with your mature clients, okay? If your machine speed's too high and your hand speed's too slow, then you're gonna saturate. You're gonna run the risk of going too deep. If your machine is super low and your hand speed's super fast, all you're gonna do is just damage up the mature skin super fast and you're not gonna get any pigment into the skin and they're just gonna leave irritated, bruised, and swollen, all right? And then far as like needle hang goes, essentially we like 2 millimeters or about the thickness of a nickel, somewhere in there. Me being a little more light-handed, I like to extend it just a little bit more and then see how it responds. Lindsay tends to stick around the 2 millimeter mark, maybe a little bit less.
So let's talk about pigments. This is like the great debate. Everybody has their own opinion when talking about inorganics or organic pigments. My general recommendation as far as what pigment to use, if you're a beginner or you haven't really been working on in the skin very long at all, or mature skin, let alone mature skin, I do recommend using an inorganic pigment because we know that inorganic pigments are less permanent and more forgiving, and your organic pigments are more permanent and less forgiving. So I promise you, over time, you're gonna thank yourself for using something that is less permanent because you'll be able to adjust it when they come back year after year. You'll be able to adjust your shape just a little bit because it'll fade more than your organic pigments will. Now, as artists, we walk a really fine line. We walk a fine line as far as if the permanent makeup doesn't last long enough, then they're going to another artist, or if the permanent makeup lasts too long, but it doesn't age well and it just looks more like a tattoo. And we have a lot of clients who they want their permanent makeup to last forever, but they want it to look natural forever. And if you've been in the permanent makeup game for any amount of time, you know that that is an oxymoron. That just really doesn't happen. It's not possible for someone to have eyebrows for 20 years and for them not to look like a tattoo. Okay, so we're going to introduce some kind of healed results for you guys here so you guys can see what our goals are when we're working on clients.
Yeah, so this is what really matters, right? So like if you can deliver the healed result, we kind of talked about the immediately right after, and sometimes they're not picture perfect, but then sometimes once they heal and you actually get the healed result back, they look beautiful. So you can see here, like on these brows, Lindsay absolutely crushed it. Like it's super soft, super natural. Losing my mic here. Absolutely just amazing as far as like the result, and it's just gonna heal so much better long term. Okay, again, here, lips, beautifully outlined, they're healed, but they're not oversaturated. You can see the wrinkles down there in the bottom corner. They're not oversaturated, it's even color all the way throughout. Eyeliner, same thing, like it's healing black, it's not healing blue. And then brows again as well. But these are the results that you're gonna get because your clients are, one, it's gonna build trust with them. Okay, so they're gonna wanna come back to you and trust you. So if you do a great job on their brows, they're gonna wanna come back and say, hey, you did my brows, like now I trust you for lips or eyeliner, all right? It's also going to essentially get them talking to their friends, right? Mature clients love to talk to each other. So they're gonna be talking to one another. Hey, where'd you get your brows done? Oh, I went to Lindsay. Like you have to go to Lindsay, all that kind of stuff. And all of that is just gonna continue to impact your bottom line and make more money.
Yeah, last page here for the healed results. Talking about the brow client, that is mine there. She is in her late 60s, early 70s, I believe. You guys can see she doesn't really have much of an eyebrow from her arch all the way to her tail. So we did decide to do a nano brow on her. That's healed one session, but when she came in, she was like, I don't want it to look like I've had my eyebrows done. And I love hearing that from clients because they right off the bat understand that natural results just look better over time.
Yeah, guys, we are running out of time here, but real quick, just to wrap up in summary here, you can find us most common on Instagram is where we're at. You can find us at Bowerman Artistry. We're super active there. We actually just launched, I launched it this year, a training academy website that's separate from our client website. You can find it at the PMUtrainingacademy.com. And then we actually have a podcast. It's called the Goal Getter Podcast. We laugh, we have a good time, talk all things PMU, service-based industry. And then we kind of have a good laugh as well. It's pretty fun. And then as promised, guys, you're going to want to take a picture of this. to scan it later. This is essentially going to get you a few things. So one, it's going to get you into a $6,000 giveaway. Okay, huge. One lucky winner will win like a $6,000 prize. The other thing it's going to give you is it's actually going to give you, like what Lindsay was talking, we have a free guide for you guys that's literally going to break down all of our favorite needles, our needle brands, the machines we use, every single needle pigment based on Fitzpatrick all the way down. It's even going to give you some more pro tips on as far as how to work in mature skin. And then it's actually even more, it's going to give you all of the slides from today. So if you missed something and you're like, oh no, like I wish I had that on the slide, there's going to be a download that's going to be sent to your email as soon as you sign up. Okay? Seriously, thank you guys so much. I wish we had time for questions, but we have about we're over 2 minutes.
Come find us. If you have questions, I see you. Come find us. We're going to be out in the hallway.
We'll be out in the hallway. Come find us. Thank you guys so much. Oh, we do have time for questions? Oh, okay.
We do.
We do, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
okay. If we have, do we have mics somewhere or something for questions? Or if you guys can yell really loud.
We're going to answer questions, I guess.
Sorry, can't see. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the question was, if you couldn't hear, like, you don't recommend microblading for someone over 50. How do you determine if somebody can do powder or nano?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I lean more towards powder, like when in doubt. Now, if I have a client who's like, I literally, like that client I showed you the very last slide, she was like, I never fill in my eyebrows. I'm too scared for like too much color. That's when I'm gonna risk doing the nano brow, because if I do a powder brow on her, she's more than likely gonna freak out when we're done. And that's what we want to alleviate with our mature skin clients. We don't want anybody to freak out, right? But with them, they're just nervous, just in general. And so it really depends on what they're coming in and saying when we're doing the consultation. If they're like, I want natural, 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 and they don't look like they have super thin skin, then I'm gonna do a nano brow. And if she's like, no, I'm fine with some color, then I'm gonna do a powder brow. It just depends on what her end result is or her end goal is. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yes.
Go ahead.
Hi. First of all, amazing presentation. Like
Thank
my
you.
favorite, honestly, until now.
Thank you so
And
much.
the question is, if they swell or bruise, what do you advise them to do?
You have more of that
I'd say, yeah,
time.
it depends on the service. You're saying like if they swell or bruise during the service, or you're saying like after, or both? Yeah. Yeah,
During,
so eyeliner,
yeah.
if they're swelling during, like me personally, I'm going to like potentially like switch my machine. So like me, honestly, like even in my mature clients, like it's very rare that I have swelling. So like what I have found is like it could very well be your technique. Like your needle might be like too far out. Your needle hang might be too far out. Your machine speed might be too high. I work actually, like surprisingly, I work eyeliner like super slow. It drives Lindsay crazy because she's like go, go, go. I work super slow and I work super slow speed. So like my machine speed for an eyeliner, I'll use like a 2.5 millimeter stroke, but then I'll also turn my machine speed down to like 4.7, like super low. And then I'm gonna work real slow and real easy in that skin. And what I found then is then you won't get as much of that bruising or bleeding, but also like I was talking technique. So if you do shading on a mature skin client, there's a way higher risk of bleeding. And I will always let my client know that before we start. Hey, like you may have bruising or bleeding, like just be aware of that. But for lips, it depends. Usually it's like, again, it could be technique. Sometimes it could be like how they pre-treated their lips too.
Don't you use like a
things
hustle
that.
butter or something
Yeah,
like
so
that?
I'll use like a hustle butter. I think it's by like Mad Rabbit. It's super natural, like good organic ingredients. But essentially I'll put that on between passes. So like once I complete a pass of shading, I'll put on the hustle butter, and then I'll put on the ice cream or like Tina Davies, the numbing on top of that. Occlude it and put it down, and then that moisture helps, but then it also just helps keep the skin from like just getting over irritated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great
hopefully that helps.
Question?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think wait for a mic. She's gonna
Cool.
bring that to
We
you.
want everyone to hear it.
You don't want to speak in the mic? I didn't either. I understand.
Okay. Oh my God. So with like wrinkles in the lips, do you not put like as much in that area? The bit that's gonna like tighten up and that wrinkle's gonna go
Yeah.
in.
Great question.
Yeah, so like typically, if you're seeing that, like where I was explaining, like essentially where it's actually like a crevice, like I will almost like, yeah, almost barely put anything especially if it's on the outline, right? So like majority of the time, those types of wrinkles are literally right on the border. And it's like, if you oversaturate that area, it's gonna like literally show like a zebra stripe right there on their lip. So yeah, I'll almost stretch, like that's what I was saying, I'll mark it. And then I'll know like, okay, hey, when I get to that area, I need to be super light, super precise. And then I can always, like, for me, it's always like we were kind of talking, like less is more. So even if it's super light when I start, when I put the secondary on or I continue to work, it's gonna re-show, but then I can always build the color later. So as long as I know where that line is and I can at least see it vaguely, I can always build it as I do like a second, third pass. But if I pass over that the first time and it's saturated, like I can't make it softer. Like I'm gonna have to blend to get it to mix. Yes and no.
Kinda,
Depends on how
kinda,
deep,
yeah.
yeah. But like just super, usually I'm super light in that area. Depends on how deep the wrinkle is too. Like,
You can also try pointillism. So again, that's like really daunting. It takes a long time, but that is, you for sure will not oversaturate if you're using pointillism. It just takes longer. In brows specifically,
sorry, it's like
sorry,
coming.
I can't really hear that. For some, like when I'm working in brows, sometimes I'll go right up to the wrinkle and kind of stop. And then I'll go on the other side, almost like Jordan was talking about with moles, because then if you do too much saturation, like he said, it looks like a zebra stripe and it makes it more pronounced. And women, yeah, I know, I have two. Women don't love their wrinkles more pronounced. They want them to look less pronounced. They want to make them go away. So you want to make sure you're not oversaturating. Yeah, great question. You're welcome. Anybody else?
Yes. I think she's running a mic somewhere here.
Great answer. Okay. How long? Oh my gosh. How long do you numb your? So I myself would be mature, and 98% of my clients are.
Okay.
How long do you numb them?
I numb my clients for like 10 to 15 minutes. Now, we started using the Tina Davies ice cream numbing cream because we're a part of the pro team, okay? So we love Tina Davies products. We use some other numbing creams too, but that one is fire. It works super well. Our clients don't feel anything, like literally anything. So for me, it's about 10 to 15 minutes or so.
Yeah, for lips and eyes is a little bit different. So it'll go usually about like at least 15. The nice part though with the, we're not, I promise it's not a promo, but with the ice cream, it is nice. It is very effective, very fast. So it's a lot more where like I've used other products where it's like sometimes I have to wait like 20 minutes and then they're still kind of comfortable. But yeah, it's a secondary and a primary in one. So it works very effectively.
Yeah, clients are falling asleep basically.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey guys, I have a question. You were saying to use a 3-round shader for the brow and do pointillism just one. How many passes are you doing?
Passes are hard because it really just depends on what the skin needs. But generally, sometimes with mature skin, the pigment doesn't really build. Like you can't see the oxidization of the pigment right away. And so I work a little bit and then I stop and I go to the other side. You know how when you're tattooing, your eyes start to cross sometimes? That's kind of what happens with mature skin because you have to really build it slowly. And so again, I do like one pass, I stop, I go to the other side, and then I do the same thing. But I mean, I'll probably say I don't do more than 2 passes. And then the third pass is like a touch up and I just grab a couple of areas. But I'm not doing like heavy work, guys. It's like really light. And that brow you guys saw earlier that had texture from the front of the brow all the way to the back, it looked like it was a lot, but it wasn't. When it came back healed, it was like so beautiful and so soft. So again, when you're working and you have your immediately after pictures and you're like, oh, I think I oversaturated it. Don't worry, because as long as your pressure is not too heavy and your machine speed is not too high and you're not causing oversaturation, your results are gonna come back nice. What aftercare do we use? Go ahead. This is you.
I think they have a booth here. We just got here this morning, so I haven't walked around or anything. We just recently switched to crushed aftercare. I love it because it has a lot of like healing natural properties in it. But they have one for brows, they have one for lips. So we use both of those for that. But as far as eyeliner, I actually just do a dry heal for eyeliner. I found that to be most effective. If the client's a little oily, I'll have them like wipe it a little bit every now and then. But honestly, like dry heal for eyeliners, it's been awesome. Like my clients rarely have much flaking and then they're not putting something on it that they shouldn't.
Yeah.
Hi, great presentation. I wanted to ask, how do you adjust your technique for clients that have had a history of cancer, especially since their skin can be very thin, but really hard, almost like plastic? That's something
Yeah.
I've struggled with, and I wanted
Yeah.
some advice on that.
Yeah, so good question. So you either have clients with cancer who they've undergone different treatments and things, and the treatments do affect their skin. So I know that leathery type of skin you're talking about. If they have like a leathery, hard skin, I probably wouldn't reach for a round shader because again, it's less blunt. I would probably use more of a round liner for that and just try it. So like that's what we were talking about. Have a plan A, have a plan of execution, what you're gonna do and try. And then if you're doing it and you're working and you're seeing, okay, I'm not really yielding the results that I want, or the pigment's not going into the skin, or I'm getting bruising, bleeding, all those things, then switch to a different needle. So if it's the leathery, I would try a round liner. If it's tough skin, and if it's really thin, I would reach for a round shader to start with.
Sometimes with that though too, it's like, that's the realistic expectations, right? Like you have to communicate with her ahead of time, like, hey, because you've had cancer and your skin is different, it might be a little bit more difficult. So I would so much rather like over communicate on the front end for the client. So that way she has a realistic expectation. Hey, this might not be totally perfect. But if you don't do that, then when you don't give her that perfect result, she's going to be mad and upset. Like, hey, why didn't it turn out the way I thought it was going to? Okay, so over communicate with your clients on those expectations.
Tell her she might need a third session. So I tell clients that right away. If I suspect anything, like, hey, this might be a little bit more of a process. No, we're not aiming for that. But again, you can always add, but you can't take away. Yes.
Any advice on mapping lips for more mature skin? I've found I'm struggling where like the color has faded out a lot and not pushing, because a lot of them are like, I want my lips to look bigger, not pushing that line too far. Any advice on like finding the right spot?
Right. I mean, it's tough on mature lips because a lot of times they're literally like gone. I've worked on someone like the one picture there where it wasn't picture perfect. Literally when she closes her mouth, like it doesn't look like she has lips. You can't like, I don't recommend this, but you can always like say, hey, like if you want lip filler, some clients will be into that and they'll be like, yep, I'll take physically larger. Other than that, what you just want to do is you just want to make sure that you do not extend too far. That's the biggest rule of thumb. And again, it's like managing those expectations. So you have to communicate like right up front, hey, your lips, they're not very big right now. Like I can visually make them look larger, but I'm not going to be able to physically make them any bigger. And as long as they understand that and they understand that, hey, like Lindsay was saying, like, hey, we're going to slowly build this pigment over time and I'm not going to give you tattooed lips today when you leave. They're going to heal softer and then we can build on that. It's always having those expectations ahead of time, because when you say that to them, their mindset is like when they sit up and see it, they're not going to be like, wait, they're not perfect. They already are like expecting, okay, hey, like they're bright today, like they're going to soften. But when you don't give those expectations, they're going to be upset when they finish. Like, but as far as like outlining and things like that, just stick to like what they currently have. The worst thing you can do for someone who's mature is outline them too far, and then it's going to be super obvious where your lip is and where the skin is once they heal.
One thing that we find with lips actually is we have a lot of clients who come in and they show us pictures of someone who's in their 20s and 30s that have beautifully filled lips, and they're like, I want my lips to look like this, and Jordan's like, they can't, sorry. So like, again, the communication aspect is so huge with mature skin clients always. Okay, I think that's it.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
We'll be around all week.
Thanks.